And the question people keep asking is like, well, how does this end? In this video, we're going to go through some of my thoughts on where this leads, what the grand strategy would be, and how sometimes how not having a strategy is the best strategy. This is causality. The news for the symptoms, we provide the diagnosis. My name is Shalom Bar-Eretz. I'm a major in the IDF Reserves. I have a background in international relations, political science, and sociology. And on this channel, we take a deeper look behind the scenes to see the reasons why world events happen the way they do. This is going to be more of an off-the-cuff video. I just put out another video explaining why I'm in the reserves actively right now, although I'm home on a break. Sometimes you have to go with the flow. To plan out everything in advance means that you are trying to take control of variables which are not in your control. For a country as large as Iran, there is going to be so much beneath the surface where we cannot control how it develops. There are so many different internal politics and things that have not been political up until the point because they have been suppressed. So whether we're talking about the Iranian opposition and how many different sectors in that Iranian opposition there may be, or we having separatists, or you're having army defectors, perhaps, all of these different things, it is so beyond our ability to prophetize how that will develop in the course of war that it would be foolish to place our weight on any single outcome. Now, I have a whole playlist on Iran where I look at the morality behind intervention, the strategy behind intervention, and also I have a video talking about regime change and how regime change can actually work. And that video I put out almost 3 months ago. So this is not something that I'm trying to do justification after the fact. No, this is the clear plan from the get-go in my eyes. I am sure some will be alarmed at my saying that parts of the plan should not be planned out. And this comes from this deep feeling that everything has to be meticulously planned out. But this feeling is inherently wrong. In every plan, you cannot take into account every factor. And some plans, this is even more so. No plan survives first contact with the enemy. The best laid plans of mice and men, and so on and so forth. My personal favorite is that plans are useless, but planning is indispensable by Eisenhower. You always need to plan, and you always need to understand that there is room for change within a plan. What I'm saying is that plans are not there to quench the thirst of the public for knowing what exactly is going on. Rather, they are there to provide a clear path forward in a complex situation. It means that thought should be given to what the goal is, and a sober evaluation needs to be given to the different eventualities that can arise on the path to it, which in this case means the different ways that the regime can deteriorate and change. But a key feature of the plan is that it doesn't plan out everything and doesn't try to be omnipotent. It might be said that some of the biggest lessons of the past is that the West cannot control everything, and that if it tries to do so, it will spend vast amount of blood and treasure and not get the result that it wanted. Look, I don't know if there's an actual grand plan behind it. I do know that that grand plan isn't being articulated. So whether it's not being articulated because it's not there, which I think it shouldn't be there, or whether it is not being articulated because you want to keep it a secret, is also valid. Why? Because let's say you even did know what you want to push for, articulating that would give everyone else a good reason to work against that option. And so by keeping it vague and you don't know what option you're working towards, then it kind of gives you more freedom to maneuver and not face as much opposition. It might seem very reckless for me to propose that you don't want to have a grand plan. I think it is better to look at historical examples and to understand why this obsession with knowing exactly how things are going to turn out beforehand is rather new. In World War II, I don't think there was this obsession with what's going to happen with Europe after Germany is defeated. It was a question later on in the war, but at the start of the war, the main focus was defeating the enemy. Any solution you might wanted had to have the process of defeating militarily our enemies beforehand. And I think this has been repeated over the centuries. First you fight the war, and then you decide how you bring about the peace. Because so much can happen internally when fighting a war. Just for the Iranian case, if there is a palace coup in Iran, reformist takes power, then that would change the dynamics. If there is a defection from the army, and they declare for one solution or another, that would change the dynamics. If a large separatist region breaks away, that would change the dynamics. If another large protest on the streets happen, that would change the dynamics. And so all of these different things can change the dynamics of who is looked to being a leader, and to put our thumb on the scale at this point, I think just would be counterproductive. Because for any of those situations to happen, the most immediate goal is to reduce the power of the Iranian regime. I think this can be easiest to visualize as an algebraic equation. Simple, right? Where X is the power of the regime and Y is the power of any opposition group. And to have the regime change, Y needs to be greater than X, okay? Well, right now, and before the war, X's power was so large that it really doesn't make sense to say who is going to fill in the shoes of Y. Instead, you need to degrade X. That means degrading the military, the economy, the political class, and so many other factors. And after that, you can start building up Y, because Y will start to grow naturally once the oppressive power of the regime is lessened. That's really, I think, the focus, and I think that's what I said before the war in one of my videos, and I think that's what's playing out now, is that the focus is on degrading the power of the regime. Only once that is done and a clearer picture can come about what solution is the best. Take the former Shah's son. He claims leadership of an Iranian opposition. No one really knows how much support he has. There are strong indications that he has a lot of support in Iran. You can see it in different Telegram groups. You can see it in some of the protests that were just happened and the chants that were there. And it does seem that he has a lot of power. And if is so, then I think that's a pretty good option. Whether he takes a role as just a politician or as the son of the Shah. Some people have floated out constitutional monarchy. Some people have floated out all sorts of ideas. But I think only after you degrade the regime to the point where people who are in support of him can come out and take power, then it becomes more necessary to actually give weight behind him, because things can change and we don't know how much power he actually has. He's probably the most visible, but it's the most visible in the context of a regime that prides itself in opacity of the population's will. Even if you were to support him or make the choice to support him now, everything you're going to be doing for the next little while, it doesn't matter, right? Because you're still going to be targeting regime targets. You're still going to be attacking the different pillars of the Iranian regime. And so until you get to a point you have lowered the power of X enough where you can feasibly put in a power of Y, which can take over, then it really doesn't serve any purpose to state what Y needs to be. I think one of the biggest unknowns is, how does Y take over? I put out a short video about how it's the man with the gun who decides. You need to convince the people with the military power to either lose, right? You need to defeat the people with the military power, or you need to have them switch sides. And they seem very loyal, and I think also the Artesh, they haven't been breaking away yet, right? And I think anyone who's putting too much high hopes that the Artesh will stage a palace coup, if I was the Iranian regime and I had 50 years, I wouldn't let the Artesh be independent enough to stage a palace coup. So I think that's kind of false hopes. I think an army switches sides if they believe that the regime they serve is the complete wrong cause, or if it's a lost cause. I don't see the army, especially the IRGC, seeing the regime as the wrong cause. So I think the only option is for it to be seen as a lost cause, and then they have their own personal interest to try to get the best deal in the future Iran rather than clinging to a lost cause of the past. That, I think, is what would need to happen in the end. And how do you get there is still an open question. It's a very hard question to crack. In history, regimes fall when the army switches sides or through civil war and the regime collapsing. I don't know what the outcome is going to be within Iran. Who would be the one storming the palace, right? You could have sectarian breakaway provinces, with the biggest one getting coverage would be the Kurds. But even then, I don't see them marching on Tehran. At the most, they would be seceding, and then that would be subtracting from the power of the regime, subtracting from the X and letting a different Y take over the regime. Then who would be that Y? And so I think at the end, it's going to be a little bit of everything. I think that the more X gets removed, gets degraded, then the different forces which have long been dormant in Iran will be able to make their voice heard. And only then will it be better known whose voice is loudest and who can summon the most political and military power within Iran when the time comes. So all of that is a very long way for me to say that I have no idea what the future of Iran is going to hold. And that can be extended to the rest of the Middle East, where I have a video in the works about how the different alliance structures of the Middle East can shape up in a post-Iran future. And that'll be on hold for a little while until there's some more clarity with these quickly moving events. But for that and for more, and for the video about what the home front is like in Israel during this war, come to the channel. Causality. The news about the symptoms, we provide the diagnosis. Remember to like, subscribe, follow me on X. This is the Patreon, where I produce articles which are less conductive to being filmed and put on YouTube for the algorithm. And there I also put some behind-the-scenes looks on some of my videos. Until next time, take care.